Hello, beautiful people. Thank you so much for joining us again for another session of this powerful online global conference, The Sacred Wound as a Portal to Your Awakening. My name is Charlie Giles, and I am honored to be your host for this powerful wisdom sharing event. Today's session, we are talking to a very lovely lady, Robin Rose Bennett. Let me tell you a little bit about Robin Rose Bennett. She is a storyteller, a writer, and a herbalist. She's been offering classes in wise woman healing ways, herbal medicine, and earth spirit teachings since 1986 at herb conferences, festivals, clinics, medical and nursing schools, and most joyously outside with the plants. Robin Rose shares herbal medicine with gratitude for the loving generosity of the plants and the magic, mystery, and beauty of the web of life. She is on the faculty of the New York Open Center and the Arbor Vitae School of Traditional Herbalism, and is the author of 2 meditation MP3s and the books Healing Magic, a Greenwich Guidebook to Conscious Living, and The Gift of Healing Herbs, Plant Medicines, and Home Remedies for a Vibrantly Healthy Life. Please welcome Robin Rose Bennett for today's topic, The Wound Reveals the Cure, how her body's pain called her home and led to her path as a Greenwich herbalist. Hello, Robin. So lovely to see you.
Oh, Charlie, right?
Yes.
Okay, Charlie, lovely to meet you and
Yes.
be with you and be here with everyone who's joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for saying yes. It's such a dear topic. And I have to admit, when I read the title, I was very intrigued. And I thought, yeah, I'm looking forward to this conversation with you. So thank you for your time and energy.
My pleasure.
I wanted to probably kick off with the first part of it, which is what might be, unknown to some people. What does it mean to be a Greenwich herbalist? And what's that versus any other type of herbalist?
Well, a Greenwich herbalist is a person of any gender. When I started, it was mostly women, and now it's anyone who identifies that way. But it's an herbalist who is not only working with healing plants, but one who is attuned to the interconnected thread of what's the word? Animation, not like as in cartoon, but what that thread that animates all life and connects us all. So I see, and green witches in general, I can't speak for everyone because it comes through us uniquely, and herbalists are a particularly eclectic lot, I will say. But as it comes through me as a green witch is one who knows that the plants are healers, elders, beings. They are not things for us to use, right? But rather elders, because literally, physiologically, they're our elders on the earth. So a green witch is one who really is interwoven with the magic of life, and who understands as well that healing is multidimensional, right? Whatever avenue you come in, whether you're taking a plant for your belly, it's going to have a connection to healing on an emotional level. And if you're taking something, to help you calm down or have more energy, whatever, it's going to end up helping you physically. So it's a long way of answering you that a green witch is one who knows that we're part of nature and everything is connected and everything is alive.
Oh, I love that. And I guess, is there a way that we can go into a bit of the conversation for people who might not understand the term witch in today's, like what it is today?
Well, let's just talk about the etymology of the word, which comes from Wicca, which comes from, as in like basketry, Wicca, which comes from to bend. And so a witch is, again, is someone who is adept at working with co-creating with the universe, co-creating with, whether you call divinity, God, goddess, all that is, the Tao. It's this, a witch is one who is, again, connected at that level of co-creation, and who I find is, particularly in green witch world, I find this enormous essential connection with the teachings I've also read or received directly from indigenous wise people. So it's a witch is a wise one, wise enough to know what we don't know. Wise doesn't mean I think I know everything, because that will never happen. It's so fascinating. Like whatever you know, it's like a thimble, and then what you don't know is always going to be this vast expanse, and that keeps life exciting. So I hope that answers you about witch. I know it's a very loaded word, and honestly, one of the reasons why I chose to identify that way when I was getting started, being like kind of publicly as an herbal teacher and an educator, was because it's a word that has been used historically to silence women. And I thought by owning it, it's not something someone can use to quiet me, to shut me up, in other words. And somehow the green in front of it makes it a little less threatening to people who have been indoctrinated into thinking that it's something evil. Like no witch worth her salt would be manipulating and doing hexing and that kind of thing, in my opinion. There's many roads, right? Many paths, but because we understand that what you do to another, you do to yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you've identified that way. I think it's very empowering. And especially because like, as you say, even the green witch part, it puts together two of those with your herbalism, puts together that modality of that connectedness to nature, which, as you said, is really what it's all about. That
it's our greatest hope, right? In this time.
Absolutely.
The connection to nature awakens our connection to our own essence, our own true nature, right? Which is the heart, which is the love that we actually are, that is so kind of under wraps. And we got to unwrap it, and we got to unwrap it like now.
Yes.
I stopped before we connected over this magic Zoom portal. I stopped at a favorite oak tree of mine that lives nearby, and it's a beautiful old oak in a very kind of strange setting. Like this magnificent being is in a parking lot, and I asked the oak if there was something to bring in to our talk today, and I did get an answer, and the answer was to rise up singing. So rise up singing. So I took that to mean I ought to offer at least a bit of a song. And so I'd like to do that. I
love that. Thank you.
So the one that was the first one that came to my mind was a song I learned in sister circles, women's circles, but I'm going to sing it as person instead of sister. So to include everyone. And I'll sing just one verse. We are people on a journey, singing now as one, remembering the ancient ways. The people and the wisdom, the people and our wisdom. And the verse that I truly wanted to share is, we are people on a journey, singing in the sun, singing through the darkest night. The healing has begun. The healing has begun.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Yes, it definitely has. It definitely has begun. And so, hoping through this message that people will really resonate with that idea of stepping into their healing.
Step through the portal.
Yes, exactly. So actually the part of your title of the talk today was about the wound revealing the cure, which I'm very intrigued about. I would love to hear more about that and how you've seen other people heal through this way.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to remember who first said that to me, and I think it was a woman who's now an ancestor named Janine Parvati Baker. I think she was. I like to give credit, and I didn't look that up, but I'm pretty sure. So, but the wound reveals the cure is another way to say it, and a wonderful, another ancestor, Stephen Levine, says it this way. He says, your fence of fear is your gate of growth, right? So that place that we butt up against is, in fact, as you know, right, it's that doorway we need to go through in order not to have our energy be spent holding something away from us, right? Thinking this shouldn't be happening, this is wrong. So yeah, it's and it comes in different levels, right, Charlie? Because if you can trust the wounding, then you reframe it in a different light. So the wound becomes an invitation. So, for example, somebody who has been hurt by somebody that they trusted, maybe when they were a child, which we hear these stories all too often, right? And then they shut down a part of their heart, and it doesn't hurt the other person, right? It doesn't awaken the other person. It doesn't really do anything. It only hurts you. And so when someone is ready to illuminate that they've shut down in the present to something that happened in the past, right, then what often happens is this, where their spirit has been, and when I say they, it's me, you, all of us, right, has been compressed and pressed down, it expands exponentially. And I've seen this over and over and over and over again. So somebody will grow their compassion, right? Or they'll grow their risk taking. You know, we always have this invitation to take life's hurts and use them to close off another and another and another part, or take life's hurts to help us. And I think this is the gist of your whole offering here, right? To help us open our hearts even further, to hold both, and this is so essential, the grief and the joy. So the wound reveals the cure, right? The wound is the grief, is the pain, is the suffering over the pain, right? But the cure is to let that light in and see what is one step past that, and what are you holding that is no longer even happening. And even an example I can give from my own life, and it's maybe a different kind of wound, but I lost my life partner very suddenly. Well, when I say suddenly, I mean like in 6 weeks from a radical diagnosis, from wellness to dead in a very short time. And of course, it was devastating. It was devastating. And yet, so now it's 10 years. And as time, I have moved through time doesn't really move, we move as I've moved through time. And even right then in the back, in that time, I remember this one moment where the trees in the forest kind of murmured to me as I wept, everything lives and everything dies. And everything lives and everything dies. Everything lives and everything dies, Robin, they said to me. And it went, of course I knew that.
Right.
There's knowing and there's embodying. And so that terrible wounding, and I won't deny that it was, I mean, I'm forever changed, right? But that terrible wounding opened up a way of being that's less fearful of loss now. It's still not my favorite thing, right? But, so I guess in a way, it's a way of saying, accepting and trusting that what life brings is a gift to unwrap. And of course, that's harder to accept the more difficult the wound is, right? The more profound the wound is. But what I have learned is it's true whether it's, a stub of the toe, shows me my mind and my body were in two different universes in that moment, right? Or it's, a devastating loss or an illness or a tragedy, right? It's all part of and I guess for each person, it's like, what's your path? Is your path that you want to live fully and authentically? Because if you do, and you want to have your heart open, then this is essential. This is essential. There's no way around it. It's only through it. And something else I've noticed, I was talking about this with a client really recently, is we don't always need to, like, let's say it's something really old in someone's life. We don't always have to remember every detail. We don't have to necessarily remember. If we have a sense of what happened, that can be enough. Because sometimes people spend way long times digging in to find, like, I have to know exact, and maybe that's right for some people, but oftentimes it's like a re-traumatization, and it's not necessary. It's like, where do you want to go? Where do you want to go? How do you want to move forward? And where, in my work, it's how the plants help us do that.
I
Because
love that.
they really do. They can help so much.
Yeah, that's beautiful. But I love also that what you're saying, because I agree. Sometimes people get stuck on the detail of the event rather than about what they're going through and the feeling and what they need to let that pass.
Because the feeling is in the present. The feeling needs the healing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure maybe you've gone through this in so many ways in other talks, but it's acceptance is not condoning.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I love that, because you mentioned that yourself, like in your own grief, we're not suggesting when calling on people to heal or to walk through their darkness and their pain, we're not at all suggesting that you're not allowed, that it's, or you're not meant to have that grief, or it's not going to be hard, or you're not allowed to feel that loss. It's all about those experiences, isn't it?
I would say grief is a sacrament.
Yeah.
Grief is a sacred and holy thing. And in this culture that I live in anyway, it is absolutely one of the things that makes people so uncomfortable. They like got their little watches do people do watches anymore? They've got their things out on their timer, like, are you done with that yet?
Yeah. How many days do you need? Okay.
How many days you need, or weeks or months, or what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
So I know in my deepest place of knowing that it was the full allowing for me of my grief, and grief spirals. It's not like you go here and then you're done. It spirals. It can arise still in this moment, in any moment, but it's the full immersion into the authenticity of the feeling that allows the joy to be born. And so there's the wound revealing the cure. You can't have true, joy is the way that I see it, Charlie, is joy is not only is our birthright, but it's already there. That's a natural state. It's just covered up with a lot of stuff. And so as we take off those overcoats of stuff, right? Wounds, pain, this, that, what we've been told, what's allowed, what's not, who we're supposed to be and not, the joy is just already there. It doesn't have to be created. So that's quite a gift to discover. But I don't think you can discover that if you can't grieve, if you can't feel.
No, that's right. If the society is telling you, even with, crying or being emotional, it's always, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, you'll be okay.
Absolutely. Because I'm uncomfortable seeing you like that. So vulnerable. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I often in my circles, I will ask people not to come in for a hug, to hug somebody who's crying. It's like, let them be. And if they ask you, that's different, but don't jump in, because so often we, I want to help.
Right.
As if that release wasn't the help.
Yes. Or in a way of saying, I need to comfort you so that you stop, because
Precisely. Yeah. I'm that person. If I'm crying and someone touches me in the kindest of intentions, it stops me.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is terrible, because, if I'm having that release, I need it.
Yeah. And it really kind of feels good too once you release it.
I even noticed physically that if I cry with some like resistance to crying after it, I'm like all puffy and swollen and if I have like a massive cry, like happened any number of times when my dog passed,
Mm.
there's like nothing. There's no physical signs of distress. It
Interesting.
was just something I noticed. I was like, wow,
Mm.
that's interesting. And I see it sometimes when people are at their most vulnerable, they look so beautiful because their hearts are just kind of torn open. And of course, I think we all want to be able to be in that place without being torn open. But nonetheless, check it out for yourself. See if you don't notice this sometimes because life happens, right? Things are, there can be.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, in this process that we're saying about stepping into this area, to the wound to find the cure, it's also not suggesting that it's not going to keep happening. There aren't going to be other things that come up, right? I mean, that's
Healing
life.
moves in a straight line.
Yeah.
Healing just does not. It's like life itself, right? We know that the spiral is part of one of the primordial shapes of life coming into form is the spiral,
Yes.
and our paths are like that as well. But the beautiful thing about that too, and not but, and the beautiful thing about that too, is that we're never in the same place, right? It's not just this circle. Like if I come back to a certain wound, let's say it's a wound of having been embarrassed or shamed as a child for whatever, pick your own example, right, of something you've experienced. I certainly was shamed many, many, many times in my childhood, and I did shut myself down for sure, for anyway. So spiraling, it's like so let's say I heal or you heal a piece of that, and then you're traveling through your life around your little invisible spiral, and then you hit that place again. Somebody says something that makes you like, oh my God, I'm mortified. You're not in the same place that you were the other times. Like your spiral keeps expanding and your capacity to heal keeps expanding if you allow it. It's really entirely a choice, I think. I
Yeah.
think maybe it's not a choice for everyone. One of the things that has really revealed itself to me as I have gotten elder is that things that I always used to think, oh, if this is true for me, this is true for everyone. I've learned that's not true,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
People have different capacities or need different kinds of guidance to be able to do things that other people can do more readily. Right. So but what I will say, life has shown me, is that, and I've worked with a lot of people over 35 years, so this is based, I like to teach based from my experience or talk based from my experience. I can cite research and stuff, but it's really not my thing. My thing is, what have I seen? What have I felt? What have I discovered? Is that if we sincerely ask for help, it comes. If we sincerely say, I need like to find the right person who can guide me to find my way through this portal,
Yeah.
or we're asking for help from the universe, or it could be a person, it could be a river, it could be me going to my oak tree. I do that. I'll go and I'll say, help. I need help. What do I need? How can I, what help can I have? Where do I turn? Right? Because if we're honest, all of us get, um, lost or uncertain about the right path to take in a given moment, or, you know, say yes or no to a certain, and just in opportunity, but in context of your conference, of this conference where we're participating in, even like, is that the right guide for me? Right? Like, do I want to go to an astrologer or a therapist, or do I want to, how do I, because all of us have, only so much energy and resources and time to devote. So, a beautiful prayer for people, or entreaty to the universe is, guide me to, the people and places that are going to offer me the best support on my
Yes,
healing path.
exactly. Yeah, I've actually been mentioning that to people prior to some of the days kicking off, to keep reminding them and saying, you don't have to go with everything that you hear. Not everyone's going to resonate with you, and that's totally okay.
Yeah.
There's different vibes for everyone, but there's also that idea of who you resonate with. You want to connect and really
Yeah, or
feel
maybe you just don't even have anyone.
right.
And
That's
then, and
exactly
then you
right.
sit by the river and you say, help, right?
Yes.
Because I do want people to know that we have allies that are more than human. We have allies in the trees, we have allies in the river, we have allies in the ocean. We have all of nature really is conspiring to help us wake up to who we truly are. And that's another thing we've been shamed out of, right? Like, I remember when what's his name, Prince Charles, admitted, right, that he talked to his plants, and he was ridiculed, up, down. This is so, it's so ignorant,
It
really,
is. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
It is.
Because we historically have always listened to
Right.
nature. We get our messages on the winds, right? Or
Exactly.
from the whale that comes up out of the water right at that moment that you ask something. So I encourage people to be, and maybe you think of this as childlike, and that's totally fine. But I encourage you to be childlike in that sense of full of wonder and curiosity in terms of how signs come to you for your healing. Because everything, and this is one reason I wanted to be outside while we were recording, everything is in nature is always listening. We folks, we two-leggeds, we're the only ones who stopped listening.
Right. Yeah.
So everything's listening and responsive. And what I've also learned, and see it for so many people so beautifully, is plants heal through love. We can talk all day about, the chemistry of a plant that heals a wound. Like, I just want to bring in a couple of plants. Like yarrow is a classic wound healer. I, in fact, just sent out a whole newsletter today about healing a wasp sting with the help of yarrow, plantain, and violet to be specific. But so here's this plant that's a wound healer, beautiful, blood staunching, anti-inflammatory, anti-infective, common weed, free for the, respectful gathering. And on the spiritual and emotional level, this plant is a wound healer in the sense of it helps strengthen your electromagnetic field, your auric body, your etheric body. So the plants always work in that like mirroring. I always tell my students to look for the mirror in the physical if you're working with the plant spiritually, because if it doesn't have that, then it's probably just like somebody wrote some like psychic woo-woo. They
Yeah.
maybe,
Yeah.
but you'll always see it like garlic, right? Garlic is, and by the way, that yarrow did beautifully on my side. I've been wearing like a green earring for days, this little poultice on my lobe because it was a really rough sting.
Oh, wow.
I don't know, it might have been multiple or something. I gave a friend a hug when she came to my front door, and all of a sudden I said, "Oh my God, you must have a bee in your hair."
No way. Oh my
Kind of
God.
awful. And that was just a few
Yeah.
days ago. But yeah, so they will always work. I forget exactly what I was just going on to say, but they always will. Oh, I said garlic, right? So
Yes,
just
garlic.
an example that's, I think, usually really clear for people, right? So garlic, the whole protects against vampires thing, right? But it also is protective in the body for pathogens, for
Mm.
bacterial infections, for viral infections, for fungal infections, for parasites, right? So there's the metaphor will match the physical medicine.
Mm.
And because of the nature of what you're offering here, I want to mention hawthorn
Mm.
as a plant to get to know for doing this kind of work,
Oh,
because the hawthorn tree, besides being a sacred grandmother plant, um, is a beautiful plant about that helps the heart spiritually, physically, emotionally, and Hawthorn, the tree with haws and thorns. Her thorns are really profound. Different species, some will have little ones, some will have really long ones, but they're all sharp, right? So hawthorn helps us to open our hearts while maintaining a sense of our own sacred space, like in how to say yes and how to say no. Right? The plants teach us these things. We have these wonderful teachers all around us. It's so life enhancing to get to know them, and even getting to know one is brilliant. Like dandelion root in a tea. If your liver is full of rage because of some wound that you are furious about, you can, as you're working with, whoever's helping you or however you're doing it to unwind yourself from holding that to your own harm, a plant like dandelion can also help on the physical level, where those emotions, get shoved into the liver, or they get put into the breast, or they get put into, right, violet, if they're going in the breast, is really helpful. Right? Because our bodies reveal, now here was Carolyn May said this one, our biography becomes our biology.
Yes.
Right? That's a great insight.
It is great, yeah.
But we can change and shift this at any instant. This is the thing to really, really feel for yourself, explore for yourself, is that the things that you feel the most mired in are absolutely liftable, shiftable, changeable. It starts with the intention and decision to do that, to find your route to do that. And you can be very surprised and pleasantly shocked at how you're able to shift things that you thought were forever. Yeah.
Absolutely. And releasing and letting go, having that freedom. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's almost like you can, or at least what I see is the plants help us grow our hearts large enough to hold all of it and still be in love and joy, because we let go, and yet it's not like whatever happened didn't really happen. So we let go of our attachment to the charge. Like, that is the most liberating thing when you feel it. And if you've ever felt it, when you have a big charge around something and then you don't, it's just, what a gift. Like, because sometimes we get caught up in that, like, well, why should I forgive that person who did thus and said to me? Why? Well, because it will liberate you. It'll free your energy to be who you really are, and find what's yours to really do that gives you satisfaction and gives you a sense of that you are living your purpose, because everyone has that. Everyone has purpose. And again, in our cultures now, right, you mentioned to me you have indigenous ancestry, right?
Mm.
So, there was that honoring, and still is, and where it exists, right, of drawing out from a person, what are your gifts? Who are you really? Like, let's help you become. And how I grew up, and many people grew up, is very different. It's like, well, what kind of job will give you security? And they weren't dreaming I'd be an herbalist, let me tell you. An herbalist and a writer. But there you go. We can't keep looking for approval from, or understanding from, our cultures, because our cultures are quite ill. They're
Yes.
not looking at the wound, right? So it's really up to us individually, as we do that, as it reaches a critical mass. That's how culture changes. But it definitely comes from the base, from us, from people, and our communities and so forth. This is not going to come from on high. The governments aren't going to suddenly go, okay, yeah, let's make peace in the world. They don't. But as we make peace inside ourselves, and this is really powerful, peace for me, because I've seen it, as I make peace inside myself, which means being willing to heal those wounds, and move on, it shifts all my relationships. And so as we all do this together, and we kind of have this sense of that we're in support of one another, in kinship of one another, all of us who are on this path of awakening, of growing, of going through the portal, right? To full aliveness, we help one another, right? And that's how things ripple and change in the world around us. It's not easy, and we're taught to just repress so much. I think in a way, each person has to decide for themselves,
Yeah.
if they want to be on this journey. But if you do want to be on this journey and you're sincere about that, then whatever help you need is not only available, but whatever you need from inside you to bring you along, you already have. You already have it. It's there, because we're not given challenges that we're not meant to be able to meet.
Absolutely. And I love also the idea that what you're saying is that your healing is already within you. We don't have to look for that guru person or the person who's going to, heal us as such. As you've said, we're not alone. We have all these amazing teachers around us, and the healing wisdom is already within us. It's about us stepping forward and stepping into that and saying, okay,
Right. I want that. I
I
want
want
that.
that.
And then there's nothing wrong with, with finding those who can help you evoke that and bring it up out of yourself. I'm very grateful for the humans, not just the plants, but the humans have also helped me to find the practices that help me, right? The practice of meditation, the practice of walking in nature. Even when I lived in New York City, and I write about this in my work, like it's wherever you are, nature is. City, suburb, or country, nature's there. You can put your foot on the ground, even in a little tiny block of dirt around a tree in a city park, because I did that for years. So, and I know I never thought when I would do that, if I was hurting about something, that it would be helpful. I always thought it wasn't enough. No, that won't help. It's not enough. It always helps. It always helped. So I just want to put that out there too. And by the way, just for fun, I'll mention that, all the years I lived in Manhattan, I did plant walks in the parks, in Central Park and Brooklyn, and would take people and show them all the food and medicine that was there, and it was so abundant. And I've done it in Toronto and other cities, in Athens, because in Los Angeles, because the plants are healers. They come where the people are. I live with 3,000 acres at my back now, and there's some plants I still like to go to New York City for, like the hawthorn. Like some of
Wow.
the most beloved hawthorn trees are in New York City. I mean, I go to some here too, when it's time to harvest. But anyway, that's just something I wanted to say.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. If you could tell us a story about the way in which the pain called you home.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So when I was quite young, like, I don't know, started, maybe I was 5, as a really little girl, I had all kinds of problems, in dental problems. Subsequently, I came to learn that there had been major radiation releases over the land where I grew up, in the little suburban, perfect, So I do suspect that that might be part of it, or my mother smoking when she was pregnant with me. Who knows? Whatever combination of things. I had a lot of bone loss from a very young age, which led to infection after infection after infection. And this was the bane of my life. And it went on and on and on and on. And I would be in different places, I'd be traveling, whatever, and I would get another one, and my face would swell, and the pain was awful, and back to the dentist I go. I think I ran away out of my first dental chair when I was about 8 or 9. I was just like, I can't stand it anymore. And I jumped up and I ran down the city street, and my mother running after me, poor woman. So she bribed me to come back. She said, we'll get you a really nice gift if you let him pull that tooth. And I was like, okay. So anyway, the point is, let's fast forward to now. I don't know, maybe like 20-ish, 25, and I'm living in a natural medicine mecca. I'm living in Northern California. And that's when I went to see my first herbalist about my mouth. And he gave me some herbs, which were so hideous to taste that I couldn't drink them. But that's how I began to learn that the form you take things in matters, because now I love that herb. But now I'm getting all distracted. So back to your question, how did the wound reveal the cure? So or how the pain brought me home to myself. There were no answers for me. It was just infection after infection after infection and procedure after procedure after procedure. And that got me to explore natural medicine, right? So we're talking like late 70s. It wasn't like it is now, right? Where it's $1 billion industry. I mean, I understand it's still somewhat fringe, but it was really fringe then.
Mhm.
And what guided me to do that, I don't know. I don't know. But the one thing led to another, led to another, led to another, led me to study herbalism and find my path, right? So that makes me feel so differently and not charged around all of that early pain, because it led me to seek outside conventional medicine, right? Because they had no good answers for me. I mean, they said, "Oh, we can pull all your teeth and give you a movie star smile." I'll always remember that dental appointment. That's what you should do, they said to me. And I left, crying. And my mother said, "We're not going to do that. Don't worry, honey." But that still wasn't an answer. Like, I never knew when I was going to be downed. And that wreaks havoc on your immune system. I used to try to tell myself, "Oh, it's making my immune system stronger to heal all these infections." No. So here's an amazing thing. So then, I decide to study herbal medicine. And for me, the path was, I had these two brilliant spiritual teachers first. So that was my path, went from like spirit to embodiment, not the other way around. So, but when I was studying all the spiritual work, I still was having problems come up now and again. And then I got into the herbal medicine, and I was like, I found my path because it marries the spiritual work of opening to the love of the life force and loving being alive. Because that's one of the keys, I think, to healing the wound that we didn't say together yet, right? It's I would guess you probably have a lot of spiritual people who come, who are coming here, and we have this challenging tendency in spiritual circles to not really want to be all the way here.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I was certainly there. I
Yeah.
absolutely was there, and loved spiritual work because it helped me transcend
Right.
all the pain and suffering and cruelty and yada, da, 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 da. However, stepping through the wounded places is what has helped me fall in love with being alive. And that is the biggest gift. That's the greatest thing I could possibly say. And if you told me even, some years ago that I would ever be able to say that, I would have said, I kind of doubted.
Yeah.
So how beautiful is that? And that came from, yeah, so the mouth infections led me to discover yarrow, and then the yarrow led me to want to learn more, and that led me to find my first teacher, and then more teachers, and then my teachers taught me to learn from the plants themselves, which is the gift I do my best to pass along, because that kinship is the biggest part of the healing. Like, I think our collective wound is loneliness. Our collective wound is isolation,
Absolutely.
right? And so when we come back to this kinship with nature, it leads us back into the kinship with ourselves, all parts of ourselves, including those parts that we judge, right? Which is not helpful. And kinship with one another, to be able to open to that. It's, and so, yeah. So it led me home to my path. And then 10 years into it, I discovered that my great grandmother, Esther, had been a renowned herbalist. No one had ever told me. So that was a really thrilling thing to learn. And there was another time when I was very ill, close, I believe, to the edge of here and wherever there is. And she came to me. She came to me and guided me like what to cook and how to do, literally how to make this healing thing for myself with barley. I write about this in The Gift of Healing Herbs. And I did it. And even like to the extent where she's like, no, don't cut the onion that way. She'd been dead a long, long time, right? Cut it this way. I'm like, okay. So I do it. She's never come like that again, had never before. But I was on the edge of life and death. That was a big wound.
Yeah.
Radiation, once again, actually, I had moved out of Manhattan. I moved to a beautiful little cabin a mile and a half up a dirt road in the woods. I was in ecstasy. I was living 6 miles from the oldest nuclear power plant in the United
Oh
States.
my goodness.
And I'm a very sensitive person. My instrument is very sensitive. My cat died. I got really sick. We
Wow.
all had classic radiation poisoning symptoms of weight loss and hair falling out and turning gray and teeth falling out. And I mean, it was really bad, right? Really bad. And herbs helped us all heal, right? And of course, we want to heal the larger thing too. I do my best, I am an activist. I don't always use that term. I just think I'm an engaged citizen.
Yeah, I love that, engaged citizen. Yeah.
Leading me home. So that was a rough experience. And then not the first cat, but the second cat I had, who was also, again, losing teeth, losing hair, we moved.
Right.
And the help of herbs like seaweed, and yarrow seems to be the star of this talk, and yarrow, we healed. Which is, remarkable.
Mm.
So, but all guiding, I feel like without particularly the young challenge, right, of all that painful physical trauma, maybe I wouldn't have found my way to herbalism. Maybe I would have stayed up in the ethers. I think it's entirely likely, like who knows, but given how I am and how much work it takes for me to really like come down and be here and not in my head. So that literally led me home to myself, because I think in discovering like about Esther and my great grandmother, this was in my bones and in my blood. This wasn't meant to be. I've done this, I think, for who knows how many lifetimes.
Right. Exactly.
But it's just so much more than simply clinical herbal medicine of you come in with, I don't know, hypoglycemia, and I tell you, take this herb. That's not
Right.
how I do my work. It's not really what it's about. It's looking for what is the gift to unwrap in the physical. Literally, that's how I do my clinic sessions is, how can this possibly be of benefit to you? Like, that's a great question, everybody, to start with. How can I make this my ally? I remember I was with my very first apprentice. This is 1986 or 7. I was up at her country home with her. I did one at a time in those days. I don't do that now. And I got one of those infections, right, that I was prone to. And she went out into her field. She was totally new herbalist, right? But she went out in her field and she called out to the plants, and she's a very straight woman. So this was the coolest thing. Right? And she called out to the plants and she said, "Yarrow, where are you? Robin needs you." And she said she shone her flashlight and immediately went right to the patch I had just shown her of yarrow down the ways. And she gathered it for me and took care of me. And but so I was still having them. And then just to kind of complete that thought, what I also see is with herbal medicine, besides it helping us open to our natural joy and our embodiment and all those little things, like loving life, it also strengthens the very systems that are the most vulnerable in us. Like, we all have our vulnerable places, whether it's our belly or our skin, or and then our vulnerable places emotionally and spiritually, whether that goes back only to this life or other lives. I think it's all of the above. as you work with the plants, it helps you to strengthen those vulnerable places so that you become stronger and stronger there than you were before you got wounded or sick or whatever word, somebody wants to use. I don't want to jinx myself, right? So I'll say I'm part tree, so I'll knock on some wood. It's now years since I've had an infection like that. Not to say it could never happen. And I do have to take extra good care of my gums and my teeth and my bones and all that, and I know that, and I do, right? However, again, it's not like it was, right? And even just yesterday, is a young herbalist I adore who I've known for years, but I didn't know this part of her story, that she became an herbalist because she was told that she had this cough she couldn't get over, was an incurable lung condition, and she just would have to live with it and get weaker all her life. And I don't remember what made her start to drink some herbal teas, but in 2 weeks she was well. And the lung condition never came back, right? And so it led her home to her great joy of counseling people, and providing herbal medicine. But what a wild thing, right? There you're a young person and you're told that you have this incurable condition. And I mean, honestly, I hear stories like that a bunch.
Yeah.
And then the herbs help someone come through the other side. And so if you, especially when it's something serious, as opposed to you stubbed your toe, if you don't kind of explore and receive what the teaching, what the gift is, what the real cure is in healing that condition or experience, you tend to find another challenge or another illness or another wound or another bad relation, whatever it might be, until you will shine that light on what you're bringing to it that wants your attention. And I always say it's like you're being called to put love where love seems not to be. It's never like you were bad or you were stupid it's not that. It's never. If you get that message from spirit, I guarantee you're not hearing spirit and finding out who you really are.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's what we're here for. We're here to become who we came here to be, which is ourself. And no one else can be that but you. No one. Like, you're the only you there is, and I'm the only me there is.
Right.
And when you claim that, even just a little, even starting what to do becomes like that out breath that follows the inhalation. It's natural. It flows from you, which was for me the greatest surprise, because I always thought I'd be one of those people who'd be like ancient, like about the age I am now, before I'd know, what I was here to do.
Yeah.
But it really is that when you open to the truth of who you are, of your being, the doing follows with much more ease.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've seen this again with my apprentices and students over these decades. It's it's all here.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Robin. I feel like I love this conversation and where it's gone. I know that so many people will really resonate with the message that you've brought through. I'm conscious of time as well, of course, and I wanted to give you some space to explain. You have a free gift for everyone as well, so perhaps you could explain that a little bit.
Sure. I used to not meditate because I thought, oh, my work is so meditative and wonderful and beautiful. I don't need to meditate. I'm always in my intuitive spaces. Incorrect. Meditation really is so vital to me. I have seen that it helps me hold center. I would even go so far as to say it helps keep me sane in living in the time that we're in, with so much noise all the time. So I offered to you a meditation that I wrote. It's 16 minutes or like that, because I wanted to make it short enough that you'd actually take the time to do it. I know it sometimes can seem so hard to find the little spaces for ourselves, but it's so worth it. And so this ocean meditation, I originally made it for my father, my beloved dad, when my beloved mom was ill. And the ocean is his favorite thing. And so I made a meditation for going into the ocean and, kind of dropping your burdens for a time in the healing waves. And when I gifted it to him, he said, "Honey, this is too good for just me. You have to produce this and share it." So I did.
Nice,
That's
beautiful.
the ocean. So that's the ocean meditation. And I actually, so, and it's an MP3, so you can download it, listen at will.
And also, I guess, a little bit about, so if people want to find you and learn more about what you do, how could they?
Sure. Yeah, probably the best way is to go to my website and sign up for my newsletter,
Okay.
robinrosebennett.com. I wasn't born with the .com part that came later. robinrosebennett.com. Sign up for the newsletter. Like even today, Charlie, the whole newsletter was about healing the humble weeds, helping us heal from bee stings to COVID.
Right.
So big wounds, the little wounds.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I'm on Instagram at Robin Rose Bennett and all those social media
Yes.
places.
You're so good at it too. I really enjoy watching your little clips, and it's so informative. I love it. I love the energy.
Wonderful. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. And I've been more active on my YouTube channel as well. So I like this new edition where we can do shorts. So I'm putting my poetry on there and my and my plant work on there. And and I have a couple of books, The Gift of Healing Herbs, Plant Medicines and Home Remedies for a Vibrantly Healthy Life, and my first book, Healing Magic, a Greenwich Guidebook to Conscious Living. Both of those are available signed by me through my site, but also anywhere and everywhere. You can get them, and I have new books coming out that I'm very excited about. So sign up for the newsletter and stay in touch. Also, I would love to mention, for anyone in the New York area, having a live, back to live summer solstice ritual that you can see on my information, and also to mention that I do online classes. So if you're everywhere and anywhere, please consider, because I do make those online classes quite experiential as well. I'm not saying it's the same as being together, but it's close. We create community, and I give you hands-on things to do while we're together. So it's good. So maybe consider that. And I would like to offer, just in closing, a little haiku, and I'm not sure why this one, but it's what's coming to me. It's called, and I hope I can remember it. Give me a second here. It's called Time. Time is a conundrum I like to ponder. Now is the truth of time. There we go.
Oh, I love that.
So if the wound is in the past, let's enter the healing in the present that brings us into the future.
Beautiful. Such wise words. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. It's been such a valuable conversation.
Thank you so much for doing this, and for your work, and many green blessings your way. Thanks for inviting me, Charlie.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Robin.
Bye for now.
Bye.